All right, let's see what we got here before we wrap it up. I'm just going to scroll through here. Tom Marshall, our good friend who goes by ARedZona UK on Twitter. Did the Deshaun Watson contract set an unattainable bar for some of the quarterbacks looking to get paid? Well, that's a great question. We don't know how unattainable it is, because what will happen, and we've already heard it from some of the other owners, starting with Ravens owner Steve Bisciotti, that the $230 million fully guaranteed 5-year contract given to Deshaun Watson creates a problem. It complicates their efforts to negotiate with their quarterbacks. Now, they didn't come out and say that's an aberration that we refuse to acknowledge. You'll hear that from time to time. Sims and I were talking about that last week. You'll hear other teams or other businesses, depending upon what the market is and how one contract sets a new bar. Well, they're crazy. We're just going to ignore that. That's an aberration. Well, you haven't heard that yet, because those owners know there's a chance they're going to have to go along, that's where the ball has moved. And here's something that I think I've meant to say a few times about the Watson contract, but I'm not sure I ever articulated it. As a practical matter, these contracts that are given to franchise quarterbacks, guys who have truly shown that they are among the best in the NFL, they are really guaranteed as a practical matter. When do we ever see a team get into the out years of a quarterback's contract and want to tear it up and get rid of him? That never happens. Now, injury could do it. And with a guy like Lamar Jackson, that could be an issue. Or maybe Deshaun Watson's legal issues could cause the Browns to decide to look elsewhere instead of paying him $46 million a year a few years from now. But for the most part, and I think this chain is largely, if not completely unbroken, true franchise quarterback, that money in year 3, 4, 5, 6, which is not guaranteed, it really is guaranteed. The only difference is you got to put a big pile of money in escrow if you are the owner of the team that does the $230 million fully guaranteed contract. And I checked with someone who knows how the funding rule works. And I think by next March, Jimmy Haslam is going to have to put like $170 million away for future payment. It's a stupid, outdated rule that has its roots in the fact that once upon a time, owners didn't have the money potentially to take care of their players. So money had to be put in escrow. Now, nobody's going bankrupt. Nobody's going to be without the money necessary to pay these salaries when they're due. But that's one of the reasons why teams don't want to do it. But as a practical matter, franchise quarterback contracts, with very, very few exceptions, are guaranteed, because you never see the team tear it up and get out from under a true franchise quarterback's contract. So will other teams have to do it? Will Kyler Murray get a fully guaranteed contract from the Cardinals? Will Lamar Jackson get a fully guaranteed contract from the Ravens? That's going to be the question going forward. Can the teams push back against what the Browns did? And, frankly, the fact that the 3 months since this Watson contract was done has entailed some disintegration of Watson's case, at least in the court of public opinion. I don't know. Does that make it easier for the teams to say, we can't do this open-ended commitment? We don't know what the future is going to hold with anyone. It's a delicate argument to make, though, because Watson's the only one who's in this specific situation. So it is attainable. And I think we're going to learn more as some of these other contracts are done. How much will be fully guaranteed? And will there be other Deshaun Watson deals? Will it be an aberration, or does it become the start of a new trend? But I think eventually, especially for franchise quarterbacks, it is going to be a trend. It may take a few years, but there's going to be somebody who has the leverage to make it happen. And I still wait for the day that a quarterback does a contract that guarantees him a specific set percentage of the salary cap to protect against the possibility or the inevitability that his contract becomes obsolete as the cap goes up and up and up. That's the one final frontier. Fully guaranteed contract was a frontier that we weren't sure was ever going to happen for 5 years for that kind of money. The next piece for a franchise quarterback who has real leverage and real options and can really squeeze multiple teams together. Let's say another Kirk Cousins who gets to the open market can say, I want a specific percentage of the cap. Maybe Russell Wilson is going to do that. I guarantee you that Russell Wilson's next contract will be fully guaranteed. I forgot about him. With Murray and Jackson, who knows? But everything the Broncos have given up and this hype machine they've created, justifiably so, for Russell Wilson, his next contract, I believe, will be fully guaranteed because he's got that Tom Hagen of agents who has one client in the NFL. He can drive a hard bargain, and the Broncos are already in position to give Russell Wilson pretty much whatever he wants. Paul Dobson, have you invested in a passport yet? We need to get you over to London this autumn for one of the NFL games. Don't forget to bring Sims. He can grab a burger off the floor of Heathrow or Gatwick airports if he wishes. You know, the problem is we have to work on Sundays during the NFL season, if you didn't already know, and NBC doesn't do any of the London games at night because at night here is the middle of the night, literally in London. So I doubt that we're going to make it during football season, but one of these days, if I live long enough, we'll be there in the off season to get to know some of the very passionate fans of the NFL and of PFT Live and of PFT who are in the UK and in Ireland. Next one comes from Real Aaron Ellis. I'm curious about expansion to Canada. Talk of London, Germany, Mexico. Toronto could easily sustain a team, even though the Bills series was a bust in the early 2000s. That wasn't our team, and the venue wasn't ideal. I don't know that the NFL would put a team in Toronto because of the proximity to Buffalo. And there are other cities where the NFL, I think, would put teams before it would encroach on the turf of the Buffalo Bills. I think London is very viable. I think eventually, if there's ever one team in London, there will be two teams in London, maybe an existing team plus an expansion team. They've got two stadiums in London that are ready to go, Wembley and Tottenham Hotspur, ready to go for NFL teams. And it makes sense to have two instead of one. It reduces travel costs because those two teams are going to play each other twice per year because presumably they'd be in the same division. Now, it increases travel costs for other teams that have to come over on a regular basis, and it would create scheduling complications and exchange rates and salary cap and all sorts of things. But at some point, I think it's going to happen that there will be NFL teams in London. And I say teams, two teams, not one. Two teams in London and more teams eventually elsewhere. I don't know when that's going to start. I think the NFL is going to want to get to 18 regular season games before we start hearing about other teams. But I really do believe at some point 32 is going to become 34, and that's going to become 36, and that's going to become 38, and eventually there will be 40. It's going to take a long time, but I think it will happen. And the other thing to keep in mind, I had a conversation with somebody in a position of influence about this not that long ago. You don't really need to have a team in a major metropolitan area. You don't need to have a 75,000 seat stadium. I've had people explain to me that the extra money that is made from the fans who attend a game and sit in the upper deck, it's arguably not worth the extra expense of maintaining the crew necessary to accommodate all those people, that maybe a 40,000 seat stadium is enough. And that opens up markets that you wouldn't think of as being potential NFL markets. And also, remember, it's about getting these games on TV. That's the future. Get them on TV, put people in a position where they can wager on these games, both big picture and one play at a time. That's the one technological quirk that we're waiting for, where everything that's happening at the stadium is being beamed real time into your house or onto your phone, and you can bet one play at a time. That will create a greater appetite for more inventory. So you can only have 18 games, presumably. I don't know. Maybe once they get to 18, they're going to push for 19 or 20. But another way to increase inventory is to increase teams, and I think it's coming. And I think London's in play. Who knows about Germany? Who knows about Mexico? I don't think Toronto would get a team, but I do think at some point there will be more NFL teams, and my aspiration is to be living and working long enough to see that day come to pass. Rich Chesney has a question about Deshaun Watson. The contract is structured in a way to financially absorb the suspension the first year. Is the shift in rhetoric from his legal team intentional and an attempt to ensure that the suspension occurs in 2022 and not 2023? And what Rich is getting at there is the structure of the first year of the contract, where $45 million or so was paid as a signing bonus. The salary is very low. It's the minimum. $1.075 million, I think, is the minimum for a player with his level of experience. That's not uncommon, first of all. I know people think that it was nefarious and it was intended to minimize the financial impact. That's not uncommon. And it's also happened with restructurings for people who know they're being suspended. Tom Brady once did a restructuring with the Patriots in advance of his 4-game suspension in 2016 in order to reduce the financial impact week in and week out of his suspension. And the league didn't say boo about it. So that precedent's already out there. The league doesn't think there's anything untoward about doing it. Now, in this case, what you could do then, if he is suspended without pay in 23, let's assume they put him on paid leave for 2022, gets all the cases resolved, next year is suspended without pay. They could restructure that bonus, put the salary all the way down to the minimum, spread out the balance, and do it again. And it will be perfectly fine. The one way the NFL can handle this, though, is to impose a fine, a major fine that circumvents this effort to artificially reduce what he's going to lose by way of his pay. So there's many different ways to get to the same spot. There's nothing improper about it. And I don't think it matters 2022 or 2023 to Watson or the Browns. They just would like to get this over with. They want to get this over with. They want to have him serve whatever the suspension is and then get back to the business of putting together a football team that can be highly competitive with one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, presumably. It's going to be a challenge after missing 1 year. It's going to be a real challenge, as Sims has said, if he misses 2 years. And at some point, he misses so much time that maybe he just doesn't ever get it back.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.